It's time, ladies and gentlemen. Let's say hello to Trinny Woodall. Hello.
Morning, Graham. How are you?
I'm very well, and yourself?
I'm really well, actually.
Oh,
Cold, but
good.
happy. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, as are we all. Now, my first question, it's a silly one, but I need to know before we get on to talk about it. Are we calling the book Fearless or Fearless?
Second, fear less.
Fearless. Okay.
Mhm.
And it is a book full of advice and practical tips, but it's framed in terms of boosting your self-confidence. Is that right?
I think it's just because I've made over a lot of women in my life, Graham, and it's always fear to an extent that holds us back. And I read this book when I was in a rehab in the 80s called Fear the Fear and Do It Anyway. And it was a really great book to just not be paralyzed by fear, but just keep going forward and learn as you go along. So I think that inspiration came from the book that I read in
And
the 80s.
and the book, it's sort of it's a very kind of it's a can-do sort of book. You set people practical challenges. What are some of the challenges you set in each chapter?
Well, I do the same at the end chapter because I love a manual, Graham. So I say, ask yourself and challenge yourself. So we might be discussing instinct versus intuition. We might be discussing where you feel you are in your career, around finances. So in the finance one, I do, how much do you hide what you really spend? How much do you write down everything you spend? Fear of financial insecurity. I've gone through different times in my life quite a lot. And so I went for a while to DA, Debtors Anonymous, and in it, I learned some tools that really help me. So in the ask yourself, it's just ask yourself how you feel around this subject and how much it worries you or doesn't. And then the challenges are around, so for that one, the challenge is for a week, write down every single thing you spend, however small it is, on your phone, whether it's 10p somewhere, and then just sort of put it into categories and work out what you feel comfortable with and what you don't. But sometimes having a view over everything is better than hiding from ourselves what we're doing.
I've already learned something. I did not know there was an organization called Debtors Anonymous. I'd never heard of it.
Yeah.
Wow. Thank
Yeah.
you very much. So tell me this. Do you see this book as, will people buy it for themselves? Because it sounded like it maybe is a difficult gift to give someone because maybe you're going, your
Well, I
life's
think the
your life's in
harder
crisis. Your
Yeah,
life's in
I think
crisis. Here's a book.
the harder gift, I think, was what not to wear all those years ago, because it was, you were giving people books saying what not to wear, and it was a real, maybe a judgment on themselves. All right, but that's how it's gone. But this is about, I mean, I've had, I've done book signings around different places, and I was in Australia doing book signings there as well. And most people did love the title because it inspires them. And I do talk a lot about how can we fear less in our lives. So I think those people who probably know me or follow me get the title totally. And I would hope people who are a bit farther away, if they're given a book saying fearless, it's a sense of what women might feel about another woman. Lots of people give it to their mother and their sister and their daughter. There's a kind of, I get piles of books of book signings, and they're for different generations, which I love because I think we can go through every stage and just for a while get a little bit stuck.
And tell me this: have you changed, Trinny? Because back in the day, I felt you had rules. There were things that's right, that's wrong, this is good, that's bad. Are you more kind of forgiving and relaxed about everything now?
So much. I think I'm like a mature cheese. I think I do feel, actually, when women come up to me in the queue saying I'm really mature, can you help me please? And I go, you're not a bloody, excuse me, you're not a cheese. It's the way they describe themselves. So how we describe ourselves is really important. I have definitely changed, and I think the biggest difference is I make suggestions and I sort of say, consider this in your life. And I've probably learned a little bit over the years how to bring ideas to people so that they're prepared to look at them, and they feel excited to look at them. And I
Yeah.
think that's what this book is compared to the rules of before.
And it's interesting because I didn't realize it is over 20 years since What Not to Wear came on the air, and there was you, and then there was Gok Wan, How to Look Good Naked. What do you think caused that big flurry of those makeover shows back then?
I think we had the clothes show like 30 years ago, and there was nothing for 10 years. Then Susanna and I did What Not to Wear. And I think it was just a time we were in. It was the 2001. We'd done a book before. We'd done a column for 7 years of Cool What Not to Wear, and it was taken from that. But I think things come in cycles. You know that. You've had quite a long career. And, we see things come in cycles. So they evolve each time. And that moment was that sort of quite confrontative TV. And although every contributor we ever had on the show, I always felt really enjoyed her journey, even though it was edited like a really tough show. I think people got something from it. But that, how we dress now, there are definitely still certain rules. And I think that's where it's around color. A lot of people come up to me and say, I don't know what color I suit. And so I've done a whole thing on putting yourself into this category of color, depending on your skin, hair, and eye. And then it makes it much easier for people to go shopping, look at their wardrobe, and just know, if I know these are the colors I really suit that make my skin, hair, and eye look great, I can just then, it makes the choice less. And sometimes when we have too much choice, we have a paradox choice and we're paralyzed by it. And it makes us doubt what we know. So I try and take away too many choices.
Earlier, Trinny, I described you as a guru, and I didn't know how right I was. You have your actual kind of followers, the Trinny Tribers. How do they meet? What's the community there?
What's the gin? They started before I started Trinny London, and it was started by a woman in Northwest England called Kelly. And she followed me on Instagram. I had like 60,000 followers. And I've been to see Facebook, and they'd said to me, just put up your phone and start chatting. So I just started chatting. And so these women, started these fan pages, and then they started taking little bits of our logo and pictures of me, and it was very, all mushrooming around. So we came and said, look, why don't we just give you the title ambassadors, and you can, they called it the Trinny Tribe. So now we have 34 Trinny Tribes in 17 countries around the world.
Wow.
And yeah, and they all are unbelievably uplifting women for each other. They talk about everything. The focus is probably what I start conversations on my own channel. They talk about stuff to do with my makeup and skincare brand. They talk about clothes. They talk about styles, but they are so incredible. And you have a lot of women who join it, and they maybe put a picture up, Graham, for the first time. It's the first time they ever post a picture of themselves. And that takes a lot when you're feeling uncomfortable about your body. And then
Yeah.
you'll have 100 comments of women saying, you look incredible, how wonderful, that color's amazing on you. And it's a very, very positive group on Facebook. It's amazing. Yeah.
But so there's that, and I know you've cleverly kind of included them in the book. And do they also feed into, because I know your YouTube channel has really taken off. It's huge now.
YouTube channel, yeah, it is. It's YouTube channel was sort of an accident. Well, not an accident, but I had these films that I did that were really long on Facebook and Instagram. People said, you can't do films that long. I waffled on for 45 minutes. So we put them on YouTube, and they kind of grew from there. And then I started doing a show called the Trinny Takeover Show. And you know how much technology evolves. So I did this show, it's like a what not to wear, but I do it in a day. We spend about £1,000 making the show. We use 3 iPhones. We go into stores. We have a contributor. We have the family come at the end of the day. We have a reveal. And it's fantastic because we own the edit. It's amazing to make a show where you want to make the show you want to make. And we put them on YouTube as well. So there's about 3 seasons now. And I love it for that.
It
It's
is
like
amazing.
having
Now, I met someone from ITV News, and she films her reports on a phone. I mean, and that
yeah,
goes on telly, and we don't
yeah.
know. We think it's a camera. It's amazing. Um,
Oh, yes, that is amazing.
Here's the thing. I'm learning so much from you today, Trinny. So I knew you had a skincare brand, Trinny London, but I didn't realize how enormous it is. Again, it's really taken off, hasn't it?
It has. I started 5 years ago. I had the idea 10 years ago when I'd stopped being Flavour of the Month in England. We go through cycles, and
Yeah.
Suzanne and I were like, oh, not them now, please. And so we took a tiny show to MIPCOM in Europe, and we had about 12 countries say, we want to make the show. And I thought they wanted to buy the format, but they said, come to these countries. So we went to Poland, Israel, Australia, Scandinavia, India, a ton of countries, and made the show. And what I discovered there is how many women, when you're making them over, the way they can acknowledge how they're moving forward is by seeing makeup first. It's the easiest way to see a change in yourself before. A lot of women have body dysmorphia and they might be uncomfortable around their body shape. So to see them in very different clothes, it's hard. So I thought that's what I'm going to start with. And I had the idea when I was traveling around, but I launched it 5 years ago. And now we have 1 million customers in 180 countries. And I'm the CEO of a business with 220 people in it.
Get you, Trinny.
Yeah. That's
But
my main
also,
day job, Graham. Everything else is like writing this book was a weekend job. But it took a lot of, I mean, I've been through a lot of stuff in my life, and I've had highs and lows, and I've had to really learn through mistakes, and I've had to pick myself up again and think, okay, what am I going to do now? And I think that is also what's in the book.
I was going to say, I mean, that journey kind of gives readers confidence. Kind of go, well, look at her now.
Yeah, it is, because some people can put you in a hole of what they think you are, and then you can just peel off a few layers and you realize there's a bit more to it, perhaps.
Well, listen, congratulations on all your success. Fearless is the name of the book. It is out in hardback now. Always a pleasure to chat, Trinny. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Take care.
Loving the music. Bye.
Bye.